All right, 5:30. I can call the meeting to order, and if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome everyone for being here. Just to go cover our meeting guidelines, safety protocol. The purpose of this meeting is for the school board to conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and is being recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. This meeting is being presented via Zoom. Do want to remind folks it's not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. And in case of emergency, please exit to the exit closest to you. And Director Jeffries, would you share our vision and mission?
Sure. Vision, our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Mission is in connection with our community, the Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. Director Hofferson, would you share a land acknowledgement if you don't mind?
Sure. We acknowledge the land we stand on. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments. Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe located in Port Angeles, Jamestown S'Klallam tribe located in Sequim, Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. Okay, and that's going to bring us to 2.01. We're going to start off with the Helen Haller Yearbook cover winner, right? It's exciting.
Hello, thanks for having us here. I'm part of the Helen Haller Elementary Yearbook Committee. And for 5 years now, we've been able to announce at these meetings the winner of the cover art for their book. So the cover art, that's going to go on 400 plus books that students will take home and remember forever. So this year we have the opportunity to congratulate Miss Camilla Torres.
All right.
That's great.
Okay, so this year the subject was how far we'll go. So Camilla included this in, and it's a little bit of a shot or nod towards Moana, which is a very popular movie these days. And this is Camilla's kind of our artistic idea for what the theme was. So this will be on the book, and we're so excited. You get she's a fifth grader here at Helen Haller. So this is her last year, so she'll have this to remember her fifth grade year, and that's pretty special.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Congratulations, Camilla. It's awesome.
All right.
Oh,
Well,
Yeah.
and Camilla, while you're getting your photo taken, I just like to say to you that when your art is spread to so many other people and they can enjoy it, it's really something special. So congratulations to you, and we're lucky to see what you've done.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Well, congratulations, and we're so happy that we could share in that presentation. Yeah, that's exciting. All right, we'll keep moving right along.
Yes.
Okay. Next we have approval of our minutes from April 14th. We have changes and addition or our agenda discussion as well as consent agenda. Any objection to the approval of those items?
No objection, but I just did want to send a thank you to the Swim Athletic Education Foundation for their generous donation of an $8,000 sound system for our high school stadium.
Thank you. I should also recognize, just prior to that, I want to make sure, as folks know, from a roll call perspective, that we do have that all board members present. We have Pat joining us virtual. So just so when I share that, there's no objection through unanimous consent, that's Pat consenting as well. So in this case, silently. Any objection to the approval of those three? Yep. Hearing none, we'll consider those approved. And that's gonna move us right along to the public comment portion of the meeting. So if you are on the Zoom meeting attending virtually and you would like to make public comment, please do so using the raise hand feature located on the bottom of your screen, or bottom of the Zoom. There's a raise hand function. But that way we'll know you. We'll put you in the queue for making public comment. We'll also look for in-person public comment, which I believe Tracy's grabbing it now for us. No? Okay. Recheck Zoom. Okay, and we will go ahead and close public comment. And that will move us to our student board representative report, and we'll go to Lincoln.
Good evening, everybody. Recently within our leadership class, we concluded our executive ASB election, so we have elected our new executive group. Currently in leadership, we are doing our class ASB election, so every grade is currently running to appoint their new, I guess, class government.
Mhm.
We have AP testing upcoming next week. So that's a big one for a lot of people. I know I think the first one we're doing is our AP biology test on Monday morning. Our operetta club, their spring play opens this Friday. It's Oklahoma. And it continues through the weekend, and I think they have some shows next week as well. Our FBLA club just returned from state. I heard that was a wonderful time from several people who attended. And this week we are having college tours. Today we had a college tour over to PC, and Friday we have one to UW Tacoma and PLU. That is it.
Thank you very much. Okay. That's going to bring us to our reports to the board, and we're going to start with finance and enrollment. Welcome.
Good evening, President Pickens, Director, Superintendent Nichols, Assistant Superintendent Hudson. While we prepare for the budget status report this evening, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Elijah Boyd. He is our new Director of Fiscal Operations, and today was his first day. So this is welcome to the show.
Yeah,
And I wanted to give him a few minutes to introduce himself.
great.
Good evening, all. Nice to meet you in person. Yes, I'm going to be the Director of Fiscal Operations. My name is Elijah. I'm super excited to be here and to work with all of you. I've spent most of my career in the education industry. I worked for a private school district based out of Spokane, and I'm excited to bring that. I just have a passion for efficiency and finance. I'm excited to work here with all of you and see what we can do. Thank you.
All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're excited to have you on board.
Yes, it was a very exciting first day with Elijah. I'm very excited. Let me just say that. I can see already he has amazing potential, and I think it's going to be a really great thing for us.
Yes.
Okay, so let's dive into the monthly financial report for the month of March. Starting with our enrollment overview, this looks like a sad but typical trend for us. I will tell you, in fact, I left my notes, but I think I can remember. We are still ahead of where we budgeted. Tracy, my clicker's not working, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're sharing around.
Oh, okay. So the good news is, although our enrollment is declining as it typically does this time of year, we are still ahead of where we budgeted by about 34-ish FTE. So that's the good news. Okay. Okay. Okay, well, that's correct. That's what I was trying to get to. So, and here is our grade by grade differences. You can see there's a few more red dots than what we've seen in the past, but again, we are still ahead of where we budgeted. So that is good. Okay, into our general fund, here is our 3-year revenue trend. So when I took a look at this, one thing I noticed was March of 2024, our local tuition fees and gifts was a lot lower than this year. So just for your own information, we received a rebate from PUD in March. So that gave us a little bump over last year. Also, which was interesting that it didn't hit me in the face, but March 2024, our federal grants, I thought, well, gosh, this doesn't look so good. And then I remembered it's ESSER. So last year, this time we had some ESSER funds in that category. This time we don't. Our 3-year expenditure trend. One item I'd like to point out is under supplies and materials. You'll see last year this time, we had not spent as much as this year at this time, but we also had a frost. We were not spending as much on purpose because we had some concerns about our budget. So that is why you might see a discrepancy from last year to this year at this time. Some of these other things are bound to fluctuate, like travel. We had some more expenses last year. It's just, these are things that fluctuate. But when I see some things that look a little, I like to dig into them a little bit more. So this is our expenditure detail. When I look at the percent expended like I do each month, I always say, I think we're on track, and we're on track. We are about where we should be this time of year as far as our percent expended. And this is the full financial summary, closing with what the total ending fund balance is for the month. And then here it is on the chart. And then we show it as a percentage basis. You can see where we're, again, it's not till the end of the year that we care. We always care about the ending fund balance, but it's at the end of the year that it truly matters. So we are tracking, but the year's not over. And this is our 5-year trend for our ending fund balance for March. All right, moving to our ASB fund, steady as usual, a nice solid growing fund. Our debt service fund, once again, it's still sitting here collecting interest, not doing much, but again, that's about to change. This is the not very interesting chart that goes along with it. Our transportation vehicle fund is here, ready to purchase buses should we need them. Our 5-year trend for transportation vehicle. And then finally, our capital project fund. We are moving along with closing out this particular set of projects. And so when you look at the chart, this is how it should look. We are spending down the fund, and we are getting through the funding.
So one comment I'd like to make about this is on the consent agenda, we have a $900,000 expenditure to Neely. And I'd like you to know that Neely actually has a $3 million contract with us, and that was for HVAC replacements at the high school. So on top of many of our buildings, we've replaced the HVAC systems, and we have the building management systems inside. So while that is a large expenditure on the consent agenda, it is only a portion of the work that was completed through Neely's services.
Thank you. Any questions?
Going back to the enrollment, I understand we have seen some dips before, but any, that being said, just from month to month, are we seeing any trends or anything that captures that, or where they might come from?
So we actually have been looking at this. So the administrative team all went through every disenrollment. They have categorized the reasons why that was occurring. You'll see some students from the high school disenrolling. There are students with Running Start who complete their program. There are students that complete their high school program at SHS for credits, and so they are disenrolling. We also have a few students who have dropped out. We have students that have moved away to another location. We have students who have transitioned to they receive what we call ancillary services from us, so different types of programs that they want to access, and they no longer need those services or don't want to partake anymore. So their enrollment comes off the books. So those are the primary reasons. We also have students who need to go to the juvenile detention system. And the way that those students have enrollment, typically, the state has the enrollment through the first of the month, which is also our account. And so that happens sometimes. Very few cases of that, though.
Well, I wonder if, I mean, all these sound reasonable, these decisions we make or they make, that they need to leave our schooling system. But is there any particular group within that we could target as working towards retention?
So we're doing that. We have our administrative assistant principals enrolled in a truancy collaborative. And so they meet on a routine basis with this national collaborative group. And so there have been efforts made at different developmental levels to target truancy-based issues that might then lead to someone disenrolling because it just becomes too great. I also think we recognize that we want to be putting out a school system product that is attractive to bring enrollment to us. And so we're working really hard on thinking how that communication can happen. And I would say, do you have anything to add about collaborative?
I do. The work of the collaborative is really chronic absenteeism. And because we had a middle school assistant principal came to the district about a month late, had some turnover with our attendance secretary at the high school. I think early on attendance got somewhat away from us. So part of what we're looking at the chronic absenteeism class is that early intervention. So assistant principals have met for the last 2 months. And we have come through the program. They offer a lot of ideas for how to get on top of attendance and attendance issues early so that we don't find ourselves late in the school year with kids who are potentially failing classes or not going to get credit. So we have some optimism for a fresh start next year, and hopefully we find these numbers continuing to decrease.
One other aspect that the high school has worked on very well is having college in the high school on our own campus so that students have an option instead of going to Running Start away from us. And so I think we've had good enrollment in those programs. It allows students to have the best of both worlds, that access, but then be with their peers and teams and all those things that are high school.
Yeah, it's interesting. I once conducted a study of Running Start way back 20 years ago. And I interviewed lots and lots of kids all over the state as to why they went into Running Start. And the biggest reason wasn't intellectual development independence. That what they felt was that high school, the culture of high school was something they just didn't want to deal with anymore. And so going to a college or being in a college environment was what they felt they were ready. So I think that's something to think about, why students choose these other programs, such as Spring Start, and finding a way to make that some characteristic of our students.
So Lincoln, I see you nodding. Do you have any comments you'd like to make about that?
I was just nodding because you said the college and the high school class stuff. I think it's great. I'm in 4 of them right now. I'm loving them. I know a lot of people who love them. I think it's a great way to still get ahead for college without taking Running Start. I considered Running Start and decided that was too big of a leap for me, but being able to take the college classes within the high school is right where I want to be, and I really am fortunate to have the opportunity to do that.
Is there, I think I remember, and I don't know right offhand, but what are the, like, is there cost differences, like the costs associated with other fees or anything that take place with any of the either college and the high school classes, or maybe it's AP classes, where I know there's differences in, those fee structures, or maybe it's compared to Running Start.
So the AP fees are different than our college and the high school fees. I don't know the exact numbers, so I can get those for you. But we do have a fund where we will pay AP fees for any students that need that. Yeah, so we are mindful of it. And we still do have students taking AP when it's offered at a pretty good rate.
Yeah, so AP test exams are $96 per exam. But just like Superintendent Nichols says, we have fees. We have a lot of generous people in the community that offer to pay for them. Also, if students qualify for free reduced lunch, College Board offers a discount, and then the state covers the rest of the test. And then for all of our college and the high school classes, those no longer have fees associated with them. It was part of legislative session, I want to say 2 years ago now. So those are all completely covered, which is a huge difference than it was a few years ago when it cost, $300-400 to earn credits. Now it's free. So that is a huge, I think, difference maker, and the reason why I think a lot of our teachers are moving towards that college and the high school model, or doing it in conjunction with offering AP. Like the classes Lincoln's in, for example, he could also take the AP test in some of them, as well as earning those college credits. And a lot of that has to do with what students want to do post-secondary. What we're finding is the college and the high school classes are fairly transferable. The students who are really interested in AP have been a lot of our students who have looked at then going internationally after they graduate from high school. It seems like AP is still a little more readily accepted internationally.
International.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. All right. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Victor, can I ask one more question? It was I think it was the 4th slide. I was just curious. Did you say, I just saw that it was less in local property taxes to do, or
Yes, let's see.
did you cover?
Revenue, local property tax.
Oh, yeah, it was like the down 22%.
Right,
Got
right.
to do with you say there was a rebate or not?
No,
that was PUD.
Local. We had an $81,000 compared to 59.
Oh, right.
Property taxes do certainly fluctuate. I didn't find any specific reason as to why there was a big difference between last year and this year.
Okay.
Under property taxes. It could be as simple as when people chose to pay.
Yeah.
We have noticed on the county treasurer's report that we have had a couple of months where the amounts and when they are booked as coming through is just has the difference.
Right.
So I think that's part of what we're seeing.
Sometimes you might see a little, and then the next
little
month.
spike.
It corrects.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, and I think that's gonna bring us to bond planning update with Corey. Welcome.
President Pitkins, members of the board, Representative Forrest. Superintendent Nichols, great to be back. I think last time I was here, I think it might have been via Zoom, so good to be back in person. I saw that Director Ballant brought up the debt service fund. It's been dormant for 11 years, so it's time to kickstart that back up.
Great, great. No time like the present.
Exactly. And for, I met everybody that's present, but for Mr. Boyd's benefit, my name is Corey Plager. I represent the district with anything tax related, school bonds, levies, capital levies, etc. Mr. Norman, on page 2, I think you might have seen this slide already, but I like to show it again. It just shows the massive levels of success in 2025. In green, 68% of folks voted yes for your EP&O levy, 65.6% for your bond. I shared last time that that's the 4th highest bond yes percentage in the last 5 years, and out of 85. So these are big numbers, unseen numbers. You might have noticed over the last few years, it's been a little more difficult to get 50% for levies, let alone 65.62%. So once again, just a massive congratulations there. What I brought with me today is a high-level summary about what's going to happen next and what the superintendent and the CFO will be walking through in collaboration with myself and Mr. Marquisio, who will be presenting right after me. And we put together this high-level slide that shows the 4 factors that we're going to analyze. And these have all been prevalent in our strategy. We've looked at this over the last about 8 years preparing for this when it came to the capital levy up to present. But the 4 pieces that we're going to talk about tonight are what are interest rates doing? That's kind of a scary one right now. Your bond rating, your credit score, and the tax base. How big is your economy that's going to help support this mission? And then final, the bond structure, whether you're doing a 15-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage, we're going to talk about that as well. So we're going to dig in each of these just a little bit more in depth, show a new tax rate forecast, and then see if you have any questions. So the elephant in the living room is interest rates are a little shocking right now. Superintendent Nichols and I were talking about we would rather have this kind of catastrophic event behind us than to be right in front of us before the bond pricing. We have a little bit more time to let the markets recover. This is a history of the last 20 years of similar bonds to yours that are municipal tax exempt. And what you'll notice is there's a lot of ups and downs. We don't have a lot of ups within a few years of each other. So historically, we are hoping that we see some trends that are aligned with that as well. We say that interest rates take the elevator up. They tend to take the stairs down. So hopefully over the next few months, we'll see them simmer down. They did increase about 90 basis points in 2.5 days. They've come down about 35, 40 basis points in the last week and a half. So we're just hoping for some consistent calming and some rational thinking here in our markets coming up. But as I said, it's nice to have this behind us. One thing that Superintendent Nichols and I used when we prepared for this bond plan is for the scenario to happen, we used a 75 basis point interest rate cushion on the first of the 2 sales and a little bit of a higher cushion since that second sale will be farther down the road of 1.25%. So we've basically absorbed that first cushion. And so we're just hoping that we can see some markets simmer down so we don't have to go to another plan of action on right sizing the bonds to meet that taxpayer goal. Our number 1 mission is to provide those dollars into your capital projects fund at the tax rate promised to your constituents.
Does right sizing mean we wouldn't be asking for as large a chunk of change to start with?
It's a good question. Correct. So we did a simple 50-50 split. So the voters approved a certain amount. We'll do the first 50% in the sale, and then about 1.5 to 2 years later, do the second sale. And it's somewhat arbitrary. It's based on cash flow needs and what you think you might need to start the project for the first few years. We could do 68 million and then the remainder at the second sale. We could split into 3 sales. We have a lot of options in front of you. The board's going to set some parameters that Lee will talk about later that we have to operate within, but you can actually issue just a little bit less. And as I said, the 50-50 split is somewhat of a norm. That's a practice that we use, but we could do a little bit less to make sure. And then that gives us more time to see those rates decline. And as I said, we use a bigger cushion for the second sale. But yeah, that's the plan B. The next thing that goes into your bond rating plan is your credit score, your essentially your bond rating. This helps investors determine the likelihood that they'll be paid back in full. This is something that is, I wouldn't say required, but customary for schools, especially with your tax base, to get a credit score before going to the market. A higher bond rating could result in lower interest rates because of how safe they are, depending on your credit score. SQUIM was rated an A1 in 2008. That rating matured and sunsetted in 2014 when your bonds matured. You have not had a credit score since then, and so it's time to get it renewed. That's what we've been using for your models moving forward. We don't see anything in the data that would lead us to believe that you would have a lower rating. Is there a possibility of higher rating? A lot has changed for your economy for the better since 2014, but we'll have to see, because one of the biggest parts of your credit score is fund balance. And while 5% gets you to what you need for cash flow, Moody's likes to see 17.5% fund balance for a certain credit score. And that's nationwide. We don't have those kind of fund balances in Washington State because of our very secure apportionment system based on FTE. Other states do not have that, and they need higher fund balances. So we really educate Moody's on that so they don't have it as a negative for your credit score, but it's still a challenge to get them on board with raising your score based on low fund balance. You'll notice on this chart on the right, a majority of schools are rated either a AA3 or an A1. All these would be considered investment grade credit. Washington are very desirable school bonds.
There's a something about Washington State as well, where there's like a level of where the state itself is backing it in a way too. Is that right?
After this resolution is reviewed and approved by the board, we're going to request the state of Washington allow you to take part in the school bond guarantee program. And that for a paltry sum of $100, you will be able to have the state essentially co-sign on your bonds. If there's any reason you cannot pay a principal or interest payment, the state will. It has not technically been tested in our state. The state treasurer stands at the ready, don't get me wrong, but we haven't had a school have a problem. So it's another really strong tool to get your interest rates lower when these investors know that you have this credit score and you're backed by the state that has a AAA rating, the highest rating that the states can have. It's a desirable credit. I talked about your tax-based changes since your last bond sunset in 2014. Your economy is almost tripled in size. We don't assume that's going to happen when we do your bond plan. We don't want to say your growth is 9% on average. Let's just assume that's going to keep happening. So we have all these new taxpayers to pay these future bonds. We use a very conservative 3.5% growth in the first few years. And on the tail end, we use 2% growth. In other words, if your community grows faster than 2% 10 years from now, your bond interest and principal payments are locked in. But as home values go up, we'll have the same payment. So that means tax rates will come down. So we wanted to use a very conservative assessed valuation growth factor and then outperform that communication to your taxpayers. So these are the numbers that you can have in your hip pocket. If growth exceeds these, that's a good thing for tax rates. The last part that goes into your plan is a structure. And I mentioned 15-year mortgage versus 30-year mortgage. When you have a bond, you can customize it to any length that you would like. It can go up to 40 years. The most common, however, is 20 years. And why is that the number? Once you start going past 24, 25, and 26 years, you start to have interest kind of build up into the beginning. And it makes it so it's hard to keep the tax rate level because you're paying so much more interest. You go shorter, 14, 15 years, and now the cost to your taxpayers is elevated. It's kind of like trying to find that sweet spot with a car loan. They go in, they say, well, what's your goal for a car payment? And you're like, I don't want to tell you that because I want to, negotiate with you. But really, we're trying to find that sweet spot between how much interest you're paying to investors and how much the tax bill is for your homeowners and trying to find that balance. So the 20-year maturity is the most common for school districts. We're starting to see some schools push it out to 25, like Bremerton, to reduce the impact of your taxpayers. But with the size of your tax base, almost $9 billion, the 20-year model is what was moved forward for the proposal. So this is what it looks like today on slide 8. As we mentioned that we're watching this day by day. We still have a couple months before the pricing is set. But one thing that this chart shows in green is your future education program and operation levy estimates. In the brown color is your capital levies that are maturing at the end of this year. And in blue, you'll notice the bond number 1 and then the gray color bond number 2. You'll see how these are going to be built with a strategy to make them work in collaboration together to have a level tax rate. So the first one will be for 20 years. The second one will be for 20 years. And you'll notice in the first bond, it only has principal and interest in 2026. It'll mature a year before the second one has its final. So they'll kind of be, they will be attached to each other and be one big picture. When it comes to the CFO's perspective, they're not going to look like two, but you'll see I split them out here just for an image here. But if we had to, due to market conditions, we could adjust the first sale down a little bit and have the second sale be larger. Any questions on that before we talk next steps? Before, I won't take any of Mr. Marquisio's thunder, but on the next slide 9, the process is happening right now. Bond delegation resolution, I'll let him explain. He'll also talk a little bit about the preliminary official statement. We already have the school bond guarantee application to your business office. And the next step is the Moody's rating presentation that we do in collaboration with the superintendent's office and the business office. But a couple of the hot dates coming up are May 14th for that rating call. You'll know your credit score about 2 weeks after that date. And we're currently scheduled to review market conditions on June 9th. That's kind of like if you're NASA about to launch a rocket, we're going to check the weather. We're going to check the market weather on the 9th to see if June 10th is a great date. By having this as a negotiated bond sale in which we reach out to investors and let them know what's available, we can adjust this date should market conditions be poor or should there be any big news that day. You have the flexibility to operate and shift it back to make sure that we meet those taxpayer expectations. So this is the current schedule, scheduled to close June 24th, but this is all flexible.
What would you say, when we looked at that scale of the fluctuation of the interest rates, can you, I'm just curious, as we, you know, obviously we want it to be as you know, as good as we like, but at the same time, like what's the impact of the overall impact if, you know, from like 1 percentage point exactly, how would that be? Like,
right. So right now we essentially absorbed the cushion in the first sale. So we're right at expectation. We're within a fraction of a penny from estimate right now. And we're forecasting right now, there's a 10% likelihood that in the May Federal Reserve meeting, they'll impact the overnight bank borrowing rate. So we're watching that to see if we'll have any opportunity there to see interest rates come down. But right now, the one thing you have to keep in consideration as well is you'll have the ability to refinance these bonds at the call date. That's customarily 10.5 years from now. So there will be another opportunity to save taxpayers at that point. But it really comes down to a balance between when you need those resources and the market. So we can start to think about if we see that consistent trend downward, do you take advantage of it and price it when you can to defeat any other possible interest rate risk? Whether there's a lot of headline news rate risk for us right now. And that hasn't always been the case where something that somebody says can have such a huge impact on our markets.
right.
It used to be has to have something happen, whether it would be a war or an invasion or a recession. And right now it comes down to words about trade tensions are impacting our markets. So we're hoping that a lot of that's come to fruition. One thing that we say is if you can meet or exceed the promises made to taxpayers, then go, right? Then go into those markets at that time, because it's hard to time things. We could start to time it and say, let's wait 1 more week, rates are coming down, and there could be another global event that could impact us. So we'll be working really closely with your superintendent and communicating with your CFO as well, and making sure that when the time comes, everybody's comfortable moving forward.
Great. Thank you.
There's no other questions. I'll
Other questions?
I think you answered mine is that if you purchase, you lock in your rate, you said it's 10.5 years, that you would have the option then of looking at refinance if interest rates are more favorable then.
Correct. It's custom in our markets to not have these be callable earlier. You think about your home mortgage, you can refinance at any time, even if it doesn't make sense. Some people refinance them too early. In our case, to get an investor on board with possible $72 million, they don't want to know that 6 months later you can refinance it if rates go down. So it's a norm in our world. There are some entities that like to have that call date earlier, let's say 8 years or 7 years, and that will be reflected in your interest rate. So that'll be something you essentially pay for in another manner for that flexibility. So people would say, okay, this bond has an earlier call. We'll take that in consideration when it comes to the yield on this bond. So right now, if you see any school bond issues in Washington State, they have that 10-year call. Very custom. All right, I'm going to toss it over to Mr. Marquisio.
Hello, welcome. Great, thank you. Thank you, Corey, President Pickens, members of the board. Superintendent Nichols, thank you for allowing me to be here, and congratulations. Again, what a great result. Of course, the bonds and also the EP&O levy. Was a pleasure to assist with that. My name's Lee Marquisio. We serve the Foster Garvey Law Firm serves as bond counsel and special counsel on levies and other finance matters to the district. So we were very happy to be involved with those elections that just took place. Just following on the last presentation, one other issue that I know the district is planning on with this bond sale is that sometimes it might be you have an appetite to delay in anticipation of interest rates, but you also have project cost escalations that you have to consider. Of course, inflation just, cost of construction keeps going up. And I know the team's planning around that. And then all the bond proceeds that you get in the door, those don't just sit around, in a coffee can in the backyard. They're invested at the state investment pool. So, which is, based on current interest rates, is earning quite a bit. So there's a balance there. So later on in the presentation, or excuse me, in the agenda will be the bond delegation resolution, which I'll be presenting on now. I did want to just take a little break and just again say thank you to Superintendent Nichols and thank you to Ms. Norman and Corey and DA Davidson for all the help that they're providing on the bond sale mechanics. As Corey mentioned, we're drafting the district's official statement for the bonds, which is the offering document. It's kind of like a prospectus that describes the district, the bonds, the election, the local economy, all those various factors that DA Davidson will use to market and sell the bonds. And it contains quite a bit of district information. So all of the help that the district team is providing us to gather that information has been very helpful. And the first draft of that document has been circulated for review by the financing team. So later on in the agenda will be resolution 06-2024-2025, which is the bond delegation resolution. So this is really the second step in the bond issuance process. Obviously, the first one is getting the ballot before the voters and having the voters approve the bonds. Now the district board of directors has authority to authorize the issuance and sale of bonds, and that's what this resolution does. We call it a bond delegation resolution because this is the board's authority for President Nichols to approve the sale of the bonds on the sale date that Corey was talking about. So that's currently scheduled for June 10th, subject to market conditions. And if all of the parameters are established on the sale date, then the superintendent will have authority to approve the bond sale without further action of the board. And those bond sale parameters are in Exhibit A, which is in the back of the resolution. It's kind of the fine print. Yeah, one more. There it is. Parameters. So these are all of the limitations that Corey mentioned briefly. First of all, it's been decided that the board will be authorizing only half of the bond issue for this sale. So we are not going to exceed 72,975,000 of bonds. the delegation is temporary. So again, if for whatever reason, the bond sale doesn't go forward on June 10th, you can't just hold on to this. Administration can't hold on to this for a number of years. It'll expire at the end of the year. And I'm sure at that point, we'd, before then, be back to the board to discuss future planning. There's interest rate maximums that will be set. So that's, yeah, item D right there. The maximum interest rate for any bond is not going to exceed 6%. And the true interest cost, so for the entire series of bonds, is not going to exceed 5.75%. So that is the absolute maximum that the board will be authorizing today. And if those parameters can't be met, again, on that sale date, we'll be coming back to the board for further discussion. If you go down to F, Corey mentioned the maturity date. So again, 20 years is going to be the maximum term for any of the bond issues. So they won't go past 20 years. Corey also mentioned the ability to prepay or to refund the bonds within 10.5 years. That's the redemption provisions right there in section G. And that's based on federal tax rules for tax exempt bonds. If they're to be, basically it's required that they be callable within 10.5 years in order to take advantage of certain federal tax provisions. Yeah, if you want to continue, those are essentially the key parameters for the bonds that the board is approving here. Some of these other items, well, actually, if you go back right up to number J, or letter J, I should say, the certificate of eligibility there, it relates to the state guarantee program. So here's another parameter that the board is not authorizing any sale that won't be guaranteed by the state, because that is such an important factor to have the state's AAA rating.
My guess is that it's probably unheard of for districts not to do that, right?
Yeah, there's no reason not to do it.
Right, yeah.
And again, it's a $100 application
Right,
fee.
I'm thinking like everybody does that, yeah.
Exactly. And
Not something to think about, like.
the state's really happy to do it. They're very proud of that program, the treasurer's office, and rightly so. We have never had a school district that did not have sufficient funds in its debt service fund to make payment. We did have one technical error where a county's bank, they had a network disruption. I think it was just a server error or something, or ISP, and the funds didn't get transferred in one morning, but everything triggered properly, and the district's fiscal agent notified the state treasurer. The state treasurer had all the money sent to make the payment. No default happened. And when the bank came back on later that day, the state was made whole again. So everything worked just like it should. So it's a really sound program. One role that we have as bond counsel to the district is that we are your lawyers in this transaction. And so obviously the rules of professional conduct apply. And so we will be there on the bond sale date to make sure that all of the parameters will need to be met in order for the sale to happen, in order to kind of bless the documents before they're approved by district administration. And in that regard, we also render a legal opinion regarding the due authorization and validity of the bonds at closing. And so part of our responsibility, and that is also, again, to confirm that everything that happens on the sale date and within this entire transaction is in accordance with state law and the Washington Constitution. So that's our role in the transaction. I could go through various provisions of the resolution if that would be helpful, or answer any questions. That would be. Oh. The whole resolution. Well, I'm not gonna require that.
Good.
We could make these meetings even more exciting.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Something to talk about.
Well, if anyone has bouts of insomnia, feel free to take a copy.
Any questions on this? I know we also have Pat online as well, so Pat, feel free to unmute if there's any questions on your side.
No, I've seen a few prospectuses before and I know that it's, I mean, I trust that that the law firm has the experience to do this, and trying to go over them with a fine tooth comb is very it's very challenging. So, but I appreciate the all the work that's gone into this and all of the detailed planning on behalf of both of the firms that are making these presentations tonight. I know it's a lot of work, and I'm and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Sounds like that's it.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.
I just would like to say thank you to both Lee and Corey. Working with them is a threefold situation. Of course, districts only do this once in a blue moon. And so their ability to be clear about the steps very much ahead of time, make sure that there's good education for superintendents going into this and through this, and then the help, just as he described, that will be received in the process. It's excellent. So thank you both. You make it smooth. Appreciate it.
So we'll get to that resolution approval later on in the agenda. And with that, that's going to bring us to our superintendent report.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, well, one exciting note I have is that at a future meeting on May 19th, Mrs. Ramponi will be attending because we will be accepting the second installment of her $1 million donation. So today I did meet with her and Phil Castell, and we have received the $500,000 check, and we'll be formally accepting it on the agenda May 19th, and she'll be in attendance. So I just want to say thank you for that and having that complete. Okay, so we're going to start with the fact that we are sending out a team, small but mighty, to the career fair for educators that will happen in Tacoma this week. This career fair will have a number of postings that can be reviewed for SQUIM, and we tried to get our postings up early so that there would be a lot to talk about. And also, a package was put together so that our SQUIM booth will be certainly attracting in folks. We'll have great folks there to give the messaging, and then information and some swag from SQUIM. So hopefully people will be taking an interest and will be memorable. Right, Victoria? Yes. Okay.
Some point, once we're at the appropriate time, once we have in that process, we should think about, we won't necessarily have buildings built yet, but if there's renderings we can provide, bring along with us, we can say, well, this is what the building might look like, or will look like maybe at that point. That might be an exciting recruitment tool.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could send the conceptual board that we have with the team so they could put that out and speak to the fact that we are on the move with construction. So that's an exciting part. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to let you know that Director Young in technology has been working very hard to come back to revisit the phones. And you've seen the presentations. Our staff is certainly continuing to communicate with us that the phones have not been working well. So I just want to tell you that I'm very pleased that his work has moved forward. Are you here? Oh, great. He can tell you concisely what has occurred right now, and we're still in the throes of making decisions, but some interesting things are on the horizon.
So yeah, we've been doing some research to see what our options are for replacing the phones and potentially the phone system. We're in the process of getting quotes for not only what alternative systems might cost, but also what it would cost to separate from our current provider. So we have a fair comparison and a full transparent visibility of what that looks like going through. We've been testing different devices, transportation, and at our front desk. Donna Hudson has also been testing a desk phone. We're gathering some of the data on the network side. We're getting some user feedback. We're seeing some positive results. It seems like the center of the ongoing problems is actually the specific physical phones. And one of the elements of the phone system that so many companies find with the one we have is that even years ago when we first adopted it, they didn't have the problems we had because they weren't using these certified devices. They were using their computers. They were using an app on their cell phone. And that is sort of the design of the system. And when we were told about other school districts that use this system, it was sort of not it wasn't as clear of a picture as it could have been, and much of what we found out was sort of down the road as we started experiencing these devices. And so as update after update has come out and systems have been made more efficient, as we've overhauled our network and gone through A to Z all of these best practice recommendations for bandwidth and segmentation and so many of these things. We've found that as healthy as we can make our network, it all comes back to these phones. And the warranty period for the phones was only 1 year, so we weren't able to utilize that for replacement. We are hopeful that we will get a very favorable option to replace the phones, because we aren't a district where it would make sense to have everybody shift to taking and receiving their calls on their computers. Could we make that work maybe for most of the office personnel? Probably, but that's, even though that's a high percentage of our calls, we need staff in rooms to be able to grab a phone and make a call, whether that be 911, whether it be to the office, whether it be to the nurse, and realistically having them open an app on their computer, God forbid there's a substitute teacher, right? That creates a whole different layer. So it's just not a practical layout. The system works great in this sort of world, but in the devices that we have, they just aren't up to par. Fortunately, even if we can't realign to move forward with a different phone system, we have tested and verified that there are current / next generation devices that operate on the existing phone system. And so much of the problems with touchscreen lag and delay when answering and calls being dropped, we're not seeing them on these new devices. So there's reason to believe that we have hope in a few different potential ways, some of which would cost the district a little more, some of which will cost the district a little less. Best case scenario, we did receive an offer from a phone system provider that would, the monthly fees would be about what we're paying now, within a couple $100 a month of what we're paying now. But it also included 16 months free. So we wouldn't pay a monthly phone bill for 16 months. And the devices they were offering for sale would come out to somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 or $7,000 for 300 of them, because of some very fortunate timing on some promotions on equipment that they're looking to clear out that we've tested and works just fine in our phone system, in our network. So we have if we can't go that route, the costs from our current provider for these replacement phones would be more in the neighborhood of 20 to 40,000. We could pursue leasing to sort of lessen the blow if we don't have the cash flow to front a purchase like that. But we're still sort of working out some of those finer details, and we're hoping to get some true costs of what it would take to end services with our current provider, and depending on what that is, then doing some research to see what options we have, if we want to perhaps contest such a fee. But in any case, we have reason to believe that this summer we will be replacing the phones one way or another. And we believe that whatever we replace them with will not have the problems we've been having since we've moved to this phone system. Granted, the phone system we moved off of was falling apart, so we had to replace it anyway. But it definitely wasn't a step that ultimately was a good one, I think. So, and yeah, I took that personally because I was, leading the charge on these phones, and even though the system on the back end works, again, it ends up being the physical devices that were the real Achilles heel. So, questions?
What are some of are there differences in warranties compared to the options we're comparing? I know that, you mentioned the 1 year on the previous devices, but are there differences there? And I'm just wondering about if there's, certainly if there's an issue again, I would want us to be flexible enough to
Agreed.
to jump,
Absolutely, to be able to pivot. Yeah. So with one provider, yes, as long as we're maintaining those monthly services, the phones kind of remain under an active warranty. Granted, we've already tested the devices on site and they're not having the same problems, but they basically honor the warranty for the life of the product for as long as it's supported. In that case, there's another case where we would have our own self-hosted solution, and we would contract the setup and the maintenance of it. So that wouldn't exist with that system. That support would be limited to the actual phone system and not the devices themselves. We would be limited to just the warranty from the manufacturer on that option. But that's not our leading option right now. That's probably third or fourth on the list of options. And then if we get the phones from our current provider, they don't warranty beyond the manufacturer term, just as we've seen with our existing devices. So it's the only ray of hope we have there is that if we're outfitting ourselves with these phones that are going to work great, then it shouldn't cause a problem. So yeah, it's just I'm working with Superintendent Nichols to make sure that we've got the full picture of all these different options and what they look like. So yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the timeline is end of summer or start of summer to have this all?
So we would like to purchase the phones before the summer. Whether we go with a new phone system or not, we still want to get the physical handsets first so that they can be rolled out in the same sort of series of tasks that we're undergoing a device refresh for staff for the summer. So as we're replacing the computers, we'll also be swapping out the phones. So it'd be the most efficient way to go about it.
Yeah, so it'd be all set to go by fall, right?
Yeah. And we would start with those who are going to need to use the devices sooner. So, office personnel and folks like that. And then we'd go out to the rooms from there, to the classrooms.
Great.
Question, how does this purchase look as we look forward with our new buildings and new infrastructure with our bonds and stuff? Will it just be integrated? Are we getting like older stuff so that it can be compatible with us, and then we'll have to look to get a new again once we get new infrastructure? Or is this kind of going to be the same across, and we're happy with the functionality that it's going to bring even with new infrastructure?
We're happy with the functionality because these devices that we're kind of keeping at the top of our list are fairly open architecture. They use something called SIP, which that ties into our intercom and clock systems so that they can make calls and do announcements. So they'll be able to make an emergency call just as they'll be able to call an extension that's in a classroom, just as they'll be able to make a call over the intercom or punch in a code to trigger a lockdown. As we get more security and access control systems going, those systems can also operate on SIP. And so all of these systems tying in together is sort of overall goal and vision with that we've been working on. You know, I've talked to Mike Santos about this, and you know, the vision is to make sure all these systems can talk and work together for security, safety, as well as functionality.
Thank you.
You know, when we first talked about this, there was a question of bandwidth, and I know we were doing some tests and different times of day and everything, and what, I just wonder, like, I know we're testing these new phones and we have a few of them. What are the chances that, again, I'm not an expert as it relates to bandwidth, but it works great when there's 3 or 4 being tested, but when there's 100, 200 or 300, all of a sudden then we experience some kind of problem.
So that's exactly what happened when we demoed the units the first time.
Right.
The difference now is that we're demoing these units when we've already got 300 other phones on the network.
Okay.
So those other 300 phones are the continuing to experience the issue while these don't, right? And so we didn't have the other 300 devices on the network when we demoed the first 5 the first time several years back. And so it wasn't a true simulation of what the network was going to be when it was populated with 300 phones, unlike now where it is populated with 300 phones. So we've done data analysis, and between, you know, the presence of all the devices operating plus all of the upgrades we've done to the network, we're able to see where the points of failure are. And it's just the hardware in those phones is just, it's not sufficient in the old phones. And the phones that we're testing now, they have newer, faster hardware, and they are not experiencing the problems that these other phones have.
To this point, Bo gave you the kind of the bottom floor pricing of this best deal we're getting. He and I are talking about that for these points you're making. I don't support that we go for the lowest price. If we could go a step up and get a different degree of some technology that might help us in the future. So we're being very mindful about it, and we'll make the investment that we think is going to put us in that position. So you'll hear more about it, of course, but I just wanted you to know. And I've got to say, Bo has worked so hard to not just find these different avenues, do the trials. Tracy's running one of the phones right now. We called her in the other day and said, tell us what you find, what's good, what's bad. But also surveying other schools who have this very system we're looking at. And I've reviewed all of their returns. Your survey was excellent, thorough, and signs are pointing to good. Yeah.
I think it's great when you have a couple of features that might be beneficial, that would really be positive to staff, but also at the end of the day, I don't think, like, even if it's a matter of price, at the end of the day, being able to pick up the phone, have a dial
Absolutely.
tone,
Yeah.
have the call go
I mean,
through, and
frankly,
vice versa, is number one.
No one has explicitly stated this, but I'm taking this so personally that if I get behind another phone system and it go, you probably should fire me, right? At that point, because like I can't make that big of a mistake twice. I'm really taking this very seriously, doing all my homework. I'm checking all the references. I'm testing. I've lost some sleep over it, to be honest. So it'll be nice to have a solution in place to where I don't feel like somebody can go to pick up a phone to place an emergency call and something's going to go wrong, right? I want to have a degree of certainty that's 99.9999% that everything's going to go smoothly when people need to make a call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, try not to lose sleep over it.
Sure.
Just like-
Understood.
That's,
I don't want to put pressure on you, but been attending school board meetings probably for 10 years. The phones have not worked. Pretty much it's been an issue of discussion the whole time. We've had ongoing phone problems
Since
within the
before
district.
me. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And
if you
that's why we replaced the prior system, and then we replaced it with a system that
If you
turned out
get
that,
this
yeah.
up and running as well as you say, I think it deserves a commemorative plaque, probably with your name on it
Sure.
someplace for sure.
Sure.
Golden phone.
Golden phone, yeah.
Golden
well, the
phone.
color will be gold. I don't know that,
Hey,
don't
I
know if
love
we can
gold.
use
Gold's
public
great.
funds for a real.
I got gold shoes. I'll wear my gold shoes to the graduation. So.
Okay, thank you both.
So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I still have a number of things to run through. And okay, WASA awards. As some of you were in attendance, we did go to the WASA awards. There we are. We did highlight our SQUIM Citizens for SQUIM Schools and Long Range Facilities Planning Group for helping us to do all that was done to pass the bond. And it was a great night to celebrate community partnership. And we had great turnout from those representatives that we invited. So thank you to those who could make it. And we'll keep that up. It's a wonderful evening to celebrate. Okay, next we have the Kaleidoscope edition that was released for spring. That is coming along with every edition. We are learning from the prior one. And so you can find that on our website by going to the Kaleidoscope button. And then the newest edition is always up and available. Our bowling team is on the cover because they are state academic champions for the second year in a row, 3.96 grade point average for those ladies. And we have many stories inside Kaleidoscope that are talking about what's going on inside our classrooms, among our teams, our student accomplishments. It's just an exciting issue to put out because we have so much going on and such hard work. We do have a book study that is also underway. We have launched that and it's also available through our website. We have a resource page that has been set up on our website so that anybody interested in joining knows exactly what to do. We have a calendar of exactly which chapters will be read during which weeks of May. We have resources that go along with the books, so you can listen to a podcast or you can get a book club guide. We also have a link on here for any interested folks in the community who'd like to start and host their own book club around this, and we will help share that information so that folks can find each other. So we're very excited about it, and the book officially starts May 1st. Now, where to get books? We're partnering with the library. The books that they have for Anxious Generation have a wait list of, I believe, over 150 people, maybe close to 200. They are going to try to access copies that could be used in the library because they aren't able to pass them out because they'll disappear with the wait list, but you could come and read a chapter there. And then also having access for audiobook or electronic book. And the audiobook, there can be a free trial with Audible right now and have the book for free. So we're very excited to get folks along. A survey will occur in June, and I met with Lincoln and Ariana last week about their part in helping to craft the student survey. We had a great discussion about that, so we'll be moving ahead. Okay, August 4th, I'd like you to look ahead around this. August 4th is a board meeting, and we will have our team at our PLC Institute we're attending each year. Last year, I think the same thing happened, and I attended virtually from the conference, so we certainly can do that again. However, if you would prefer something different, we would have either only one meeting in August, or we could move the date to August 11th. I think, as I recall, it worked okay for me to pipe in virtually, but that is something that does not have to be decided tonight. Just wanted you to be aware. All right. The Bond Oversight Committee is going to convene on April 29th, which happens to be tomorrow evening. So that Bond Oversight Committee also has information that is available on our website. We did publish the names of the Bond Oversight Committee in our Kaleidoscope magazine so everyone could know who's on that committee. And we're looking forward to that starting at 6. We have Michael and Pat as board representatives, and Pat will begin with us in our May meetings. Then we have the Design Advisory Committee. So these are folks who are interested in having some type of involvement with how the buildings come to be, how layouts occur, making sure that any ideas they have for what they'd like to see in a school are present. That will occur on May 1st this week, will be our first meeting. We have over 30 people signed up for that of all different perspectives, from staff members to community members to parents. We also will be seeking to have a student-based design advisory group, so that will be convening. But we have a field trip for this design advisory committee on May 9th. We don't have school on May 9th because we didn't use all the snow days. So both Ferndale and Bellingham and Central Kitsap have opened their campuses to us to take the design advisory committee for field trips to see both the high school and an elementary school that has been newly constructed. So right now the Central Kitsap field trip is full, and we are still collecting responses for the Ferndale Bellingham trip. If you are interested in any of those, please see Tracy or me so that we can get you situated. Then want to talk about family engagement. Grey Wolf just recently had a paint and sip activity. They did this last year and it was quite successful. I was able to go as it was concluding, and the students brought a parent and they experienced a book read, but then all painted together. And so it was great because the child I spoke to just wanted me to look at his mom's painting. He was just so proud about that. And it was really a fun night. And then coming up this week, the second grade families will be invited for literacy activity. And it's called Rise Up and Write It. So that should be a fun evening as well. Just want you to know that the transition to kindergarten legislation passed in both the House and the Senate. That passage does lead to there being a cap of current transition to kindergarten classrooms. So we were in the queue as an applicant to be able to start a program this year. Then we received notice that funding was not guaranteed for the program, made the decision to pull back. Now the legislation has been passed that folks like us who have applied wouldn't be allowed to start and access the funding. So we have been advocating for a change there. And this passage over the weekend doesn't bode well for us right this moment, but I think that we'll be sure we're forwarding through WSSDA an interest that we continue to see TK as an issue that we're all discussing.
Right.
Yeah.
Say something on that. I think what's important also for us to know with that in particular is, I mean, it can't remain that way, right? So I think it's, right now we have a number of districts who have these programs in place, but we cannot, even if we wanted to, because we can't, of course, get it funded. That is a system that is not an equitable system. It's not, so we have Kitsap County districts, they're gonna be running it, they won't necessarily be able to increase enrollment, but they will have the programs running, and we're sitting here without one. So I think that's something that we're every year when we're having conversations with our representatives, we need to be pushing for that to open back up. And until it opens back up for us to be able to have what they have in Central Kitsap and what they have in all these other places, I do not think we should let a single legislative session go by where we are not saying this needs to be fixed, because you're denying SQUIM school district the ability to have this program, and you're letting other school districts have this program. So just wanted to.
Yes, thank you. Okay, another subject we've spoken about is driver's ed. And I do want you to know I've followed up with driver's ed. The OSPI let us know last November, or no, actually November of 23, that they were in a planning discussion with Central Washington University to start a training program so that people could be certified as driver trainers. Well, March 25, CWU still hasn't restarted their program, and they've been working with the Department of Licensing on the pathways for instructor certification that are mandated by the legislature. Okay. But there are also two bills that address traffic safety in public schools and instructor certification, and OSPI is hoping to have some answers around that. So we're just going to keep tracking it. We'd love to get some traction so we can get something going, but right now we're kind of in neutral until this program takes hold. Okay, WSSDA conference presentation. the submittals for presentations at the WSSDA conference this year are due on May 31st. So we're 1 month out. And I would certainly like our board to be thinking about a presentation that we might like to make at WSSDA related to bond, especially. And let's just have perspective shared. Please be in contact with me if you have any aspects to that that you think would be important. I also would like to speak to ESD 112. I think we've got 2 partners right here. There's a lot to be celebrated, and other districts want to know how successful districts have managed it, because it's just not an easy job in our state. Okay, choir success. This weekend, our choir students who had made it to state went to Ellensburg. And what we know is that our vocal ensemble, men's ensemble, placed 3rd in state. And this has not happened in 10 years. So congratulations to them. It's just wonderful news. And then we also had a band instrumental duet and soloists who went to state as well. And that is so just confidence building for our program that our singers are making it on that stage. So congratulations to them. I'd like to let you know that May 1st is National Principals Day, and May 2nd coming up is School Lunch Hero Day. So we will be celebrating our principal team and our school lunch employees, because every part of our teams is making it happen in the schools. And this week will be fun to get out and say hello. You already heard from Lincoln that Oklahoma is underway, and those shows start on Friday night. But what else is happening Friday is from 5 to 7 is the high school art show. So that's held in the auxiliary gym. And the art show has pieces of art from the students that can be purchased. But just to see all the work that's gone in, I love it. Every year, it's just really exciting. So 5 to 7. And also to let you know that our kindergarten registration occurred, and we had up to this date right now, 90 to 91 students register for kindergarten. That's some of the highest rate of kindergarten registration we've seen this early. So we are going to be tracking for 145 to 150 kindergartners this year. And the way that we've selected to land on that number, you've asked me that before. We collected all the birth rate information for the county. We've done a percentage on what we typically have for kindergarten registration, and our number is right there in that percentage. So that's great. And I think that covers it today. Oh, just to let you know that we will be sending out some emails about different things that are coming up to remind you, because we do have the budget coming along. We'll have the resolution type of information that's coming. So just keep your eye out. Thanks.
Any questions? All right. Just certainly, because we won't be meeting between now and May 1st and May 2nd. So just say that's make sure and vote for the idea of recognizing school lunch and principals and how vital they are to our entire operation. Certainly our principals, and we all know hungry kids don't learn. So
Yes,
yeah, critical aspects. So
I'll send your recognition of them.
yes,
Yes.
thank you. All right, though that's going to bring us to board business. We have the resolution approval, and there's been a request that this will be a roll call vote, but I would first be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve 10.0106/2425 resolution regarding the bond sale.
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion?
Most of it already.
Yeah, I'd say we did. You have an advisory vote on this?
Aye.
Okay. You want to call the roll?
Yes. Director Johnston, how do you vote?
Aye.
President Pickens, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice President Roca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Jeffries, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Director Halverson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Resolution passes unanimously.
Okay, so thank you very much. Appreciate y'all coming in.
Thank you.
All right, next, student representative application process. You wanna break this one up?
So it's at the time of the year where we recognize that Ariana will be graduating. And so it is time to move forward and find out which sophomores who will become juniors would be interested in becoming a board representative. And so I have had the opportunity to speak for a few moments with Lincoln and Ariana about a process to make sure everybody knows what's coming and what the opportunity is. So do you want to speak to that a bit? Talk about that?
Yeah, so during our discussion, Ariana brought up GNN, our little news segment we do Fridays, as probably the best way to convey this because a lot of teachers show it and it'll get probably the best perception and the most reception out of students. So I think we need to talk to Mrs. Ditlevson about that, see if we can proceed with that, because if we can, I think it'd be a great way to get information out there.
So I think that students telling students will be the best way to describe what the job is and the responsibility and also the experience that you gain from it. So we look forward to a slew of applicants.
Yeah. It might be worth, I mean, I know within itself, just describing how exciting it is here might be a slightly steep hill, but for some students, I mean, I think it's worthwhile to know that there's most districts and don't necessarily have like we value the advisory vote. It's what we're legally able to provide, the advisory vote, but I think it's worth noting that we have a lot of districts have these student board reps, but they don't have advisory votes and they don't necessarily allow space to, for students to necessarily give input on things. So that's, as that might be additional details to potentially add if, folks come to you and they're interested.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like a good motivational point that
Yeah.
I'll include. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll create anything. Oh, wow, that makes it so exciting. I mean, but for the right person, I think that to know that it's not just something where it's something that the board values as a student perspective. They should know that going in. It's important.
So the process will occur because all the applications will be available to the sophomores from May 5th to May 23rd. So we have a bit of time to get GNN rolling and then have that application take flight. The interviews will occur May 28th to May 30th. And I know last year, Maren and Pat were applicant interviewers. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to hear from anyone who would like to be part of that interview team. The new junior student board rep will be announced at our June 2nd meeting. Okay, so we're looking forward to it.
Would now be an appropriate time to ask the board if there's two individuals that want to volunteer?
Yes.
Are there two individuals, one of all, or well,
I'm always happy to be part of it.
okay.
But if somebody else wanted.
So
to
moved,
come-
confirmed, no, just kidding. Yeah. Obviously, based on the timeline, that will be something that you may
Yeah.
want to consider or the timing of the interviews, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
Pat? Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'm in if the timing works. So if I would be glad to just work with Regan and Maren to try to find some interview dates that work for everybody.
That work?
Yeah.
What's that?
Lincoln? Oh, I believe so. I honestly can't remember, but I think it'd be great for you to be there.
Ariana was there for my interview, so I was guessing I'd be there.
would be helpful.
It's a good perspective to have there for sure.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone that wants to compete with Pat and Maren on
I've
this?
done it a couple times. It's a great experience. so.
Okay, great. All right. Well,
Thank you, Pat and Mark.
Yeah, we'll move forward with that. And yeah, thank you for your availability on that.
Good.
All right. And next I have on the agenda platform revision proposal discussion. One of the items that I was considering proposing was especially based on what we talked about with the transition to kindergarten being capped and or not allowed. I wondered if the language that's in the current proposal, where it talked about sort of defending the program, avoid, whether or not it was strong enough to actively pursue removing a freeze, is it, because at WSSDA, they get really, because they don't want to advocate for something unless it's very clear that this is what WSSDA agrees. Upon reviewing the language, it's actually pretty robust language that talks about, enrollment, not limiting enrollment is one of the things. So upon reading it, I think that the current language is strong. Otherwise, we would be reviewing an amendment right now potentially to make it stronger. But one of the things, and again, I don't have one prepared, and I'm not suggesting that we do this, but it is perhaps something that we would maybe consider in the future, is whether or not we would want to advocate or have WSSDA advocate that the transition to kindergarten program, hopefully when we have it up, but that we move that into the general education bucket, or the actual bucket that's where it is considered, because right now it's not considered, it doesn't have the same, what's the word I'm looking for here, the same strings attached to it that is saying this is the paramount duty of the state. It kind of falls under the, well, it's not considered basic ed, I think, is the.
It's kind of nice if it's there, but
Yeah.
not necessary.
Yeah, but I think we're finding with the needs for as much early intervention as possible, with how students are coming in now, we want to be able to provide as much of that. So that's one layer of potential advocacy that we could make in the future, is putting that under the basic ed bucket, which no small task, but so I don't know if that's, any thoughts to that, or Donna, or
I think it's critical. I think that level of aspiration is what we need to be doing, because one aspect, there is the academic side of development, but also we're finding the social emotional development, the behavior management that we're having to teach students about managing themselves and how they are interpersonally is significant. And I think having that extra year in the earlier work with children is only beneficial. And I'd be really interested to look across the country and look at the states who have implemented universal pre-K and what the benefits are longer term from the states that have made that investment. I have to believe it's one of the most well-researched benefits for education at a certain developmental stage. And I hope that our state can really take that information and utilize it. And I know Chris Reichdahl is, of course, very supportive and is doing that research every year.
yeah. And I honestly think, like, if we see that it feels like this freeze to a transition to kindergarten might last longer, I think through other advocacy organizations that I'm a part of, maybe maybe we just need to move to, do some universal pre-K. Because one way or the other, I think the needs are there, so. So we'll go at it that way if we need to, so. And that was the only thing that I wanted to mention there. So we're not, no plans to propose an item. And we're just a couple of days from that deadline anyway, so. But it's always good to talk about for future years, so. Any other thoughts?
if there is a proposal that comes on from other school districts that even more robust, I don't know, would probably look at, is there a way we can sign on? Besides just, I don't know that there is, besides just voting for it, or become part of if there's an organized statewide initiative to make a universal kindergarten, pre-K to kindergarten. Possibly, I don't know what's out there for sure.
So what I'm seeing is that the move to make the current providers of TK whole really quieted the advocacy that would have happened. So if they had been told no, it would be a different landscape. But I think those of us that were just on the cusp and now don't have the opportunity, that's the group we need to harness. And so Eric and I have been talking about how large are the number of districts like us who applied, put in for it, and now cannot move out. And so I have requested from OSPI what those numbers are, have not heard back from them yet. We have put out advocacy to our legislative group around that. It's going to be an interesting group that maybe we can get some sign on with.
I think, I mean, framing it with, especially with that group is, I mean, obviously respectful, of course, with our conversations, but hey, we really got the rug pulled out from under us on this. Like, we applied in good faith, like that this was a program you were offering, and then you just took it out. There was work that we did to try to get this up and running, and now it's not. So there's a certain level of I mean, obviously, yes, conversations will be respectful, but I think there's a certain, I don't even want to say tone, but a certain level of bluntness that might be needed with this. That's like, look, we were ready to go on this. And then I get there's a budget deficit, but we make plans. We're trying to meet the needs of students, and let's get it unfrozen. Nice. All right.
Well, maybe we need to look for a coalition of groups beyond WASDA that are pushing for the same thing. I think WASDA by itself isn't going to get it done.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not even sure WEA by itself can get it done, or WASA. It's going to take probably a statewide effort of educators to make it happen. And even then, some of our legislators have itchy trigger fingers when it comes to pulling rugs out from underneath people.
Yeah. Well,
and they have legitimate reasons, I suppose, but I know some of the updates I've been sending you, mainly from WASA, talks about disingenuous, disappointing when talking about the legislature.
Yeah. One thing I can share, just because I was just there this weekend, WEA did have its annual representative assembly where we had over 1,000 delegates there, and they set the direction of WEA. And I will share that there was a proposal that was passed and approved at that representative assembly proposed by a teacher. I don't know who the teacher was, but it was very specific about allowing that program to still grow, and it did cover this should also fall under basic ed. So, and within that lens, it does say that this needs to be part of WA's legislative platform.
Is this a new proposal or one they've had before?
It's a new proposal.
Okay, well, see, that might be something to latch on to or keep an eye on if there's a way, we can partner.
Yeah.
Those organizations that are like-minded.
Yep. And I think WASDA certainly can be, can also partner based on language we have, and so wherever that can go. But I'm happy to share the new business item with you all, and just so you can look at it. But I think it's pretty strong language. So. All right. Next we have second reading and approval of policy 2415. This is performance-based pathways. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve policy 2415, performance-based pathways.
And I second.
Discussion. Advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. And that's gonna bring us to second reading and approval. Policy 4300, immigration enforcement. It's called immigration enforcement in schools.
And on this one, I did give each board member a concern I have with passing it in its current form. So I don't know if I should just read it or if we reference it or if we even have a discussion about it. I don't know. I've never had this before where I've had a concern with some of the language in there.
I think, why don't,
Could maybe,
let's do a motion first. We can navigate it
Okay.
through
Sure.
proper procedure. If for some reason that decision changes, but we'll see. Let's see if we have a motion first, and then we'll test some of my
Okay.
parliamentary skills as to navigate it. So do we have a motion on this?
yeah, I move that we approve policy number 4300, immigration enforcement in schools.
I'll second.
Okay. Now discussion, and I'll, if you don't mind, I'll let you start it up.
Okay. I guess since it's not up there, I gave it too late to put it into the slides. So Tracy said she can add it afterwards. So I guess I'll just read through it probably quickly.
Or highlights.
Yeah, the proposed policy to limit immigration enforcement in swim school district facilities is well intentioned and rooted in values of equity, student safety, and non-discrimination. However, in light of recent federal developments, the existence of overlapping district policies, and the potential legal and operational implications, this policy in its current form deserves a more cautious, thoughtful approach. So I listed 4 concerns that I had. One was a shifting legal landscape. There was a recent executive order rescinding schools' designations as sensitive locations. And that now permits federal immigration enforcement on our campuses. Says while Washington State continues to uphold strong protections for students, regardless of immigration status, and I reference a couple of RCWs, these protections cannot override federal authority, especially when such authority is lawfully exercised. By instructing, and this goes to the language that I have more, it's not on the policy that I have a concern, it's the language. By instructing school personnel to presume all immigration related present is enforcement driven and to require judicial warrants in all cases, this policy may now risk placing staff in legal question positions. Then I'll kind of just go through some of the other ones. I think it's in conflict and it's redundancy with existing policy 4310 that we already have regarding interaction with law enforcement, and immigration is another law enforcement. So I found conflicting things, and we've been through had issues before with when we have policies that conflict. It can be confusing for staff. So I think that we should send it back to policy committee to review policy 4310 and bring them into alignment with each other. And then finally, I think by embedding broad legal judgments into school protocols, the policy could invite legal challenges and challenges that may ultimately force the district to choose between compliance with state, federal, and the safety of its staff and students. And while many in our community rightfully seek visible support for immigrant families, the better approach is to ensure that our existing policies are strong, current, and consistently applied. Making symbolic political statements through district policy, especially when they might conflict with federal authority or duplicate existing procedures, is not necessarily what's best for students and their families. So I'll just go to conclusion. I think the district should absolutely continue to affirm and protect rights of all students, including those from immigrant families, but it should do so with policies that are clear, defensible, and harmonized with existing law and internal procedures. Given that policy 4310 already addresses this issue thoroughly and in a way that balances protection with legal compliance, introducing a new overlapping policy may cause more harm than good. Therefore, I am not taking a position on this policy. I just urge the board to send this proposal back to the policy committee for further review, discussion, and revision. And this review should focus on avoiding conflicts with our current policy 4310 and aligning with updated federal and state law.
Pat, I believe you were on the policy committee when this policy was proposed. Do you wanna give some input?
Yeah, I actually, when we had the discussion about this policy, and superintendent can weigh in as well, we did not, my recollection is that we did not compare it with the other policy that Director Roca is referring to. So if there is okay, so this one, direct relationships with law enforcement and other government agencies. So I mean, I don't have a problem with taking a look at this and seeing if there are any inconsistencies. Because that was not the focus of our discussion in the policy committee. And certainly it is not in anybody's interest for us to have policies that might provide conflicting guidance to our staff members. And I'll take Director Roca at his word that he thinks that there's some concerns about that. And I'm glad to look at that. My concern right now, and I think the concern of everybody on the policy committee, is that it's important for us to provide clear guidance to our school personnel, so that if, as we have seen, I think, and I understand how some people could believe that this is a political statement, and my view of it is that it is an attempt to provide guidance to our employees, so that if, I mean, I think we've all seen there are situations where immigration enforcement officials show up in various locations, and people have to make quick decisions about how to respond. And if they don't have clear guidance, then they don't know what to do, and the situation can devolve. So my concern about getting this policy on the books is that we need to make it clear what our employees can request in terms of interacting with enforcement agents, what the chain of command is within the district, so that everybody knows, the person that you call about this is the principal, and then the principal calls the superintendent or the assistant superintendent, and then they know what their what the expectations are about how they are going to interact with the enforcement personnel or that kind of thing. And Michael's right, it is a fluid situation right now, and there are different statements coming out from the federal government, from the state government, from different courts all over the country. And it's not possible, in my view, right now, with the current state of affairs, to identify exactly what the law, that there is one policy that we have to adopt in order to be in compliance with the law. It is fluid right now, and it's not clear how it's going to all shake out. But I think the most important thing in terms of what our job is as a board is to provide guidance to the superintendent and to the employees, so that they have a clear understanding of what their obligations are if they find themselves in a position where immigration officials show up at the school district offices or at an individual school and are requesting either records or access to individuals or buildings, and what kind of paperwork they need. Do they need a judicial warrant? And I think it's our obligation to do that. So I don't think it's probably that urgent that we could take this back to the policy committee and have this discussion about how it overlaps with this other policy, but I do think it's important for us to move forward with this policy.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what Pat said. I do think that, there should be some procedure for how to handle these more than what we have in our other policy. I just would like to have it match 4310 instead of have conflict or unclear things for our staff. So I do see a need for a policy like this, just not in its current form. And I think sending it back for a couple revisions, making sure they're in alignment would accomplish that.
I agree with what both of you have said about this. I do think, our paramount duty is to make sure that our students and our families and our staff feel safe and that they feel they have, they understand what our processes are. Clarity. They feel safe and they have clarity. So that may mandate this being rewritten and modified, because I do feel that immigration enforcement is separate from police enforcement, and it needs to be highlighted under the circumstances. And I also think we need to grapple with state law and a little more clearly, and that's kind of a complication. And executive orders aren't the same as law. So, in my mind, this may need some modification and link to the other policy, but I do feel like we need a policy, and I'm happy to have it revisited.
Yeah,
I don't disagree.
I just Superintendent Nichols and Director Jeffries, if either one want to weigh in here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree, but with a slight twist, I think 4130 ought to be, have some mention in there, of this new policy, should it be adopted. It's 4130 that might, or 4310 that might need to be revised, not this new policy. I like the new policy the way it is, and I would vote for it. I would favor taking a look at 4310 and adding wording then there, however, there are times when district staff will call upon law enforcement, child protective agencies, and county health department to ensure the safety of students, and then in compliance with 4300. 4300. I don't have it right here.
Oh, 4310.
In other words,
4310.
right, 4310 would be district relationship with law enforcement and other government agencies, with a reference in there that it needs to conform to this new policy. Not the new policy does not need to be rewritten, in my opinion.
All right, so I was going to add a little different idea, and just to throw in the pot, the policy committee needs to go through and wrestle with all of these different opportunities here. 4310 does have some issues that we need to look at. One of the issues in 4310 right now is that it does designate in the policy that schools are sites where immigration is not allowed, and so we will have to revise that. But to me, both of these are encouraged policies. They're not required policies. And so how do you take a policy that's more generalized, like 4310? It has a bigger berth, right? And then put a procedure on it, because policy 4300 right now is very procedural. It's not as much a policy about your philosophical approach to this. It's more about what you do next, which our staff does need. Superintendent needs it too. So I'm wondering about 4310 being called out and then having a procedure that looks like 4300 that we can be nimble with, because procedures don't require the same degree of board vote. They require that we make it appropriate for the situation we're in. So I think all of these things we could discuss. I think policy committee is a great direction for this to go. Director Roca, I did want to speak to your presentation here. It does list reconsidering the policy on limiting immigration enforcement in schools. Actually, the 4300 title took out the word limiting, which
Sorry about that.
that's okay. I appreciate that about the policy, that it actually is saying this is just how we're going to interact. It's not about what a value statement is about it, which I think is part of the point you're trying to make. So I just wanted to put that on because that's an important aspect of it.
One detail I just want to provide, and it's my understanding, and I think this is the kind of the overarching thing. I'll say less overarching than what we talked about students need to feel safe. Like that's number one, but also I believe it's state law that we are not using funding resources that come from the state to help with immigration. Like it's that's I'm sure it's worded a little more detailed in the law, but that's my understanding is that that's not our role then, and state funding is not for that purpose. And so that's something that I think should definitely be captured in whether it be a policy or procedure, any of those things. And so it's now if we have some kind of situation with child protective services or something like that, that's obviously that's something that we're gonna keep kids safe when we're mandatory reporters.
Facilitated.
That's state facilitated. And we're obviously, if it's law enforcement and there's some kind of warrant or something like that, we're obviously going to comply with all of those aspects. If it's some kind of something that's immigration related and it's more just call it like somebody just kind of fishing around, well, we're kind of seeing what's happening, well, then I think that gets into question, versus we have something that's an imminent threat that's happening right now, or something that's of broad concern. And so I would just that's the lens I would look at it. But I'm certainly fine with referring this back to the committee to take a look. In we don't have a motion on the 4310, but I'm sure that would be looked at from the committee in conjunction with all of this. And so a second,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say a secondary motion would be a motion to refer back to committee is in order.
A
So
substitute
that-
motion?
No, not a substitute motion. It's just a
So we could-
secondary motion.
So
You could do a substitute motion, but I think motion. to refer-
secondary motion, I'm not quite sure. I mean,
In the realm of hierarchy, there's only certain kind of motions you can make while there's an active motion on the
Correct.
floor. Motion to refer is one of them. But- Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I just wanted to make a point. Sometimes the best procedure that you can have is not to bring legal issues into the school. A lot of times people will do that because kids reside in schools. So when I was a principal at Grey Wolf, we had a lot of law enforcement activity on our campus because that's where kids are. So we actually met with the sheriff's department and talked to them about maybe setting up some protocols of how much notice they would give us before they came on campus, what time of day they came on campus to try and help us be more successful. I wonder if we might not reach out to immigration services and have that same type of conversation so that we have some ground rules about when we'll do this and when would be appropriate to do this, and is it necessary to come onto school campuses. So that's just a thought that we can do. Correct. We can't necessarily change the way the policy is written, but we can have conversations with our community partners about how they interact with schools. And that just might be another layer to this that we could look at.
Thank you. And please don't think I object to the policy in whole. I think there's a lot good in the policy. My primary concern is that we already have a policy that I found conflicts with. That is my primary concern. So I think it just needs to be fine tuned, not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I could agree with the point you brought up. Let's send them both back to the policy committee. This current 4300 might actually be a procedure.
Yeah.
Take a look at that and see what makes sense and combine the two policies to make a strong policy with a good procedure that makes sense for the safety of kids. So a secondary motion would be in order.
Can I just ask too, Michael, it sounds like, did you actually send something to the board members? Because I don't think I received
Yeah, I brought it today. I apologize. I don't have it for you. It was what I basically summarized when I went over. But I
Okay.
did print it out and I will make sure you get a copy. I will email you.
Okay, because that's what I was gonna just say is, it would be helpful when we look at this at the policy committee again, if you have the specific language in I don't have the number in front of me, 4310, that you feel like conflicts with the policy, just so that we make sure that we are addressing your concern.
Yes, I have one that I have lines and stuff. I will make sure they have that.
Okay, thank you.
I propose a secondary motion and you don't want me to do that, so then let's vote.
Actually, I double checked. A motion to refer is
Yeah.
considered a subsidiary motion and is in order, but it would just be, it wouldn't be, it would just be, the purpose of it is to either postpone a decision on a main motion, to allow a committee to investigate the matter thoroughly, to provide a report, or to ensure that the matter is given more in-depth consideration before the main motion group votes. So I think that a subsidiary motion to refer back to the policy committee perfectly captures what our concerns are.
I'm not so sure it's as perfect. I want both of them discussed and combined, not just this policy.
Maybe we can make a motion to refer this one back to policy committee with,
In tandem with
yes,
32,
Yes.
or whatever.
to revise, to get both of them in alignment.
Depends on what kind of motion.
So we don't have 4310 listed on the agenda as to that we're taking any action on that item. However, typically board action is not required to send something to the policy committee to look at. Sometimes our superintendent can gain insight from the conversation that happened
Discussion.
and make it happen.
Yeah.
And then I make whatever kind of motion I'm supposed to make. To do just that, to send this policy 4300 back to the policy committee for consideration. Reconsideration.
That's probably good enough.
So that was a motion to refer the main motion back to committee.
It's whatever motion works, yes.
And I'll second it,
Okay.
whatever that was.
Whatever.
Sounds good.
I think the chair is interpreting that as a main motion to refer back to committee, and you don't need any to also include 4310 back in there. I just think you're fine with that.
Clear.
You're good enough. Any discussion on that motion?
No way.
I should go.
I to whatever that motion was.
You won.
See who says board meetings are fun and exciting, isn't this? No. All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. So with that, I believe that concludes our business. So
Save the highlight till.
Yeah,
last, right?
end on that one.
Well, from the highlight at the beginning with the yearbook cover
Winner.
and
with a robust discussion.
that's right.
is that our next meeting is we have
1 week.
1 week?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We'll see. We'll see you.
See you next
See y'all
week.
again. All right.
Thanks.
We'll be